raised the 2 children I bore with my own flesh and blood, using these calloused hands and every hard-earned penny I could scrape together. I carried all the pain after my husband's death, just so my children would never have to go without. And yet, on my son's most important day, his wedding, he told me not to come, because he was afraid people might think I was the maid. A few months later, when I decided to stop financially supporting him and his sister, he called me selfish. And before I begin telling my story, if you're watching this video, please leave a comment. Who knows, maybe my story was once someone else's too. It was a quiet Thursday morning, the kind of morning that smells like fabric softener and orchid fertilizer. I had the laundry folded up on the couch, neat piles sorted by drawer, underwear, t-shirts, socks, the kind of rhythm that soothes an old woman's nerves. My orchids by the window had just started blooming again, white and pink, delicate as baby fingernails. I was misting them gently, one hand on the spray bottle, the other holding my phone. I was trying to call my daughter, Vanessa. See, my son Michael is getting married next month. Big family dinner this Sunday with his fiancé's folks. And I didn't know what to wear. I thought maybe Vanessa could help. She's always been better with clothes, better at navigating these social things. But she didn't pick up. Straight to voicemail. So I busied myself again, picking lint off the laundry. And then I heard Michael's voice. He was outside, in the backyard. I figured he was on the phone too, pacing like he always does when he talks. I wasn't eavesdropping, not at first, but his voice carried through the screen door. I heard my name. I moved closer. Not because I wanted to spy, but because something in his tone made my gut clench. It wasn't just casual. It was firm, cold. And then I heard him say it. Of course I'm not inviting Mom to the wedding. If she shows up, people think she's the maid or something. Just like that. Clear. Like someone cracked a bat against my chest. My hand went numb. The phone slipped and clattered to the floor. For a second, I couldn't breathe. My body just stood there, frozen, spray bottle still in my hand, mist falling like a light rain on the kitchen tile. I must have looked like a ghost. I leaned on the table, my heart pounding so loud I thought maybe it would burst. And in that rush of silence, memories came flooding back like an old film reel snapping to life. Michael, 5 years old, crawling into my bed after a nightmare, his little hands grabbing my arm, whispering, "Mama, you're my hero." Michael, at 12, crying after striking out at his baseball game, and me telling him, "You gave it your all, mijo. That's what matters." Michael, at 17, screaming that I didn't understand him, and me, holding my tongue, taking it, because that's what mothers do. I raised him mostly alone after his father died. 8 years of widowhood, 38 years of being a mother. Every damn day, my back breaking, my spirit bending. I worked night shifts, cleaning offices, double shifts, waiting tables, ironing shirts for rich women who didn't know my name. All so I could keep food on the table, shoes on their feet, and a roof over our heads. And now I'm too embarrassing to be seen with at his wedding, because I look like the help. I don't know how long I stood there. The orchids looked blurry. My eyes were stinging. When I finally picked up the phone, my hands were shaking too hard to call Vanessa again. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking, where did I go wrong? Was it the way I dressed? The thick accent I still have, even after all these years in America? Was it that I never made it past cleaning jobs? That I never became some shiny version of success? Was I just too much of a reminder of where we came from? I raised him to dream big, to reach higher. I told him never to be ashamed of who he was, but I guess he took that and twisted it. The next morning, I sat on the edge of my bed with a cup of cold coffee in my hand. The house felt smaller, tighter, like the walls were closing in. I could hear the clock ticking in the kitchen, every second louder than the last. Michael hadn't said a word to me since yesterday. I wanted to confront him, to yell, to scream, to ask him how he could say something like that, but part of me was scared of what else I might hear. Instead, I sat there and remembered something my husband once said, back when times were hard. If our children climb higher than us, that means we built something strong enough for them to stand on. But he never said what to do when they climb so high they forget who held the ladder. Around noon, Vanessa finally called back. "Mama, sorry I missed your call," she said. Breezy, as always. "Everything okay?" I tried to keep my voice steady. I asked her if she knew Michael wasn't inviting me to the wedding. There was a long pause, then a sigh. Look, Mama, it's complicated, okay? It's not like that. He just thinks it's better to keep things simple. You know how formal these things can be. Natalie's family is very— I didn't let her finish. White, I said. She paused again. That's not what I meant, but it was. We both knew it. So here I am now, 64 years old, a widow, a mother, a woman who did everything she could and still wasn't enough. I don't know what hurts more, what he said, or that no one's defending me. That I'm being erased, quietly, politely, like I'm something to be ashamed of. I thought, maybe, after all the years, all the sacrifices, there'd be a place for me at that wedding, a seat, a nod, a thank you. But I guess the dress I was going to ask Vanessa about doesn't matter anymore, because the truth is, no matter what I wore, wasn't going to be seen. I sat in my little home office, fingers stiff, the mouse clicking slower than usual. The sun peeked in through the blinds, casting thin lines across the floor, like prison bars. On the screen in front of me, the Excel spreadsheet loaded. My hands trembled as I scrolled down. There they were, the numbers, cold, exact, and unflinching. I'd started it out of curiosity at first, wanted to see just how much I'd spent helping my kids over the years. Maybe some part of me hoped I'd feel proud, like I'd accomplished something as a mother, but that wasn't how it felt, not at all. I read through the list like it was a rap sheet. $22,500. Vanessa's nursing school tuition. $18,000. Michael used BMW during his junior year of college. $4,300 emergency braces for Vanessa when she was 16. $30,000 Michael starter watch for his fancy finance job. $12,000 deposit for Vanessa's first home with her fiancé. $6,800 wedding venue down payment, and on and on. Plane tickets, rent when they were between jobs, credit card bailouts. I'd color-coded it too. Green for Vanessa, blue for Michael, red for the both of them. It looked like a rainbow of dependence. They always said, Mama, just this once. I promise, it's the last time. I'll pay you back, I swear. But I stopped believing in those promises somewhere between Michael luxury watch and Vanessa's third emergency girls trip that she booked on my credit card. I never said no, not once, even when it stung, even when I had to dip into my retirement savings. I told myself, that's what mothers do. That's what love looks like. But now I wasn't so sure, because love wasn't supposed to feel like a bill I couldn't pay off. The memory that hit me hardest was the first time Michael came to me about the watch. He came in wearing that smirk he always had when he was trying to charm me. Mama, he said, sitting down across from me in the kitchen. It's just 30 grand. I nearly choked on my tea. He waved his hand like it was nothing. It's not for fun. It's a tool. First impressions matter. The guys at the firm, every single one of them wears something sleek. If I show up with a cheap watch, they won't take me seriously. I remember looking at him, at the way he carried himself, so sure, so polished. He had no idea how many years I'd worn the same pair of shoes to work. How many nights I skipped meals so he and Vanessa could eat. But in that moment, I gave in again. I said, okay. But this is the last time. It never was. I leaned back in the chair and rubbed my face with both hands. The skin around my eyes felt heavy, sagging from years of stress and too little sleep. What did I do? I taught my kids that love meant sacrifice, yes. But I also taught them that my sacrifices had no limit, that they could reach into my pockets whenever they needed, and I'd smile through it. But I never taught them how to stand on their own 2 feet. Never taught them what it felt like to earn $1 and have to decide what to do with it. I thought I was protecting them, shielding them from struggle. Turns out, I was robbing them of reality. That day, I made a decision, one that had been building quietly in the corners of my mind for years, but never dared to surface until now. I was going to clean house. Not the kitchen, not the floors. My financial house. I opened my bank statements, went into my IRA, looked over the title of my home, the small apartment building I inherited from my parents, the life insurance policies. It was time to move accounts into my name only. Time to assign a power of attorney, someone outside the family. Time to rewrite the will, not out of revenge, not out of bitterness, out of self-respect. I wasn't going to die broke, just so my children could live spoiled. It felt strange at first. Going from always give to enough is enough. Like learning to walk again after a lifetime of crawling. I called my lawyer, set up the appointment. I told him I wanted to ensure my assets were protected, that no one, not even my children, could bleed me dry anymore. He nodded, didn't judge. Maybe he'd seen it before, maybe more than I wanted to believe. Later that night, I sat in my kitchen, the same kitchen where Michael had once played with his action figures on the floor and Vanessa had helped me roll out tortillas. I looked around and realized I'd spent my life giving pieces of myself away, not just money, time, health, identity. And now, at 60, I was finally learning that love wasn't supposed to cost everything. Vanessa texted me that night, "Hey mom, can you help me with a loan? Things are tight with the new baby coming." My thumb hovered over the screen. For the first time, I didn't answer right away. Instead, I turned off the phone and took a long bath that let the water rise and soak into my bones, like I was washing off years of guilt and giving. In the quiet, I let myself feel something I hadn't in decades: freedom. Michael called me 2 days after I'd decided to stop giving, said he wanted to clear the air and talk about the wedding like adults. I was tempted to say no, God knows I should have. But there's something about hearing your grown child still call you mom that makes you soften, even when you know better. So I said yes. He asked me to come to their new house, the big one out in Maple Ridge. Gated community, circular driveway, manicured lawn with a stone fountain that burbled like it was trying too hard. I parked at the curb, too embarrassed to pull my scratched-up Camry onto their perfect driveway. The house looked like a magazine cover. Big glass windows, symmetrical hedges, white curtains. From the outside, it looked like everything I'd once dreamed of when I was younger and working night shifts cleaning floors in houses just like it. Inside, it was colder than I expected. No warmth, no smell of food or laughter. Just polished wood and white walls and the faint scent of eucalyptus. Every item looked expensive, soulless. But what hit me the hardest was recognizing nearly everything in that room. The oil painting above the fireplace, I bought it at an art fair in Santa Rosa. Michael always said it reminded him of home. The fancy bone china cups lined up on the shelf, my housewarming gift last Christmas. Even the dining table, the oak one with the carved legs, was the same one from our old home, refinished and reupholstered. My past, scrubbed clean, repainted, and made to fit a life I was no longer welcome in. He greeted me with a hug, a little too firm, a little too rehearsed. "Mom, you look good," he said, smiling in that way you do when you're about to ask for something. I followed him to the kitchen where he poured us coffee, in those delicate china cups I'd bought him, and we sat at the marble island. It was silent for a while, just the soft clinking of spoons and the hum of the refrigerator. Then he cleared his throat and started his pitch. "Mom," he said, "this wedding, it's not just a party, it's a life moment, you know. A real investment in our future." I sipped the coffee slowly. It was good, rich, smooth, probably imported. "I mean, we're covering most of it," he went on, eyes darting to the window. "But we're still short, just a little." "How much?" I asked, setting the cup down gently. He hesitated, fiddled with his wedding band, looked at everything but me. "About 400,000. He said it like he was ordering groceries, like it was just one more errand. I didn't blink, didn't gasp. I just looked at him, really looked. At the way he spun the ring on his finger, the way his shoulders tensed, the way he avoided my eyes. It was all there. The performance, the guilt-tripping wrapped in silk. And I'd seen it before. The first time he begged for tuition. The second time he said the car would change his life. The third time he claimed he was so close to closing that big deal. Always a reason. Always a dream. Always me holding the net so he could jump. In my head, the words ran like ticker tape. Again with the once in a lifetime. Again with the investment in the future. A future that never has room for me. And yet, I smiled. I picked up the cup, thin as eggshell, and held it like I was cradling something sacred, something fragile. Then, I looked him right in the eye. "Of course I'll help, mijo," I said softly. His shoulders dropped with relief. He reached for my hand, and I let him hold it. For a second, just long enough for him to believe I meant it. I left not long after. Driving home, I didn't cry, didn't curse. I just felt a strange emptiness, like a balloon that had finally stopped floating. See, it wasn't the money. It never really was. It was what the money stood for. It was how he saw me, how he used me, how little he knew me at all. That house wasn't built on ambition. It was built on the bones of my sacrifices. The missed vacations, the unpaid dentist visits, the cheap shoes, the years without health insurance. I built him a platform to stand on, and now he couldn't even see me under it. That night, I opened my safe and pulled out the folder labeled Wills and Directives. I added a page, typed neatly, signed and dated. I made it clear, no more loans, no more gifts, no inheritance, until both kids reached 50 and completed a financial responsibility course. I even wrote it in plain English so no lawyer could twist it. I wasn't doing it to punish him. I was doing it so I wouldn't vanish entirely. So maybe, one day, when they're older and tired and life has scraped off their shine, they'll look back and realize what I gave them wasn't money. It was love. It was survival. It was everything. And maybe they'll sit in a cold kitchen with a hot cup of coffee and finally taste the bitterness at the bottom of the cup. The night after the visit to Michael's house, I didn't sleep. I laid in bed, fully clothed, the ceiling fan clicking above like a metronome, keeping time with every bad decision I'd ever made. By 6 a.m., I was in the shower. Cold water, sharp, fast, like a slap in the face. I dressed in my old navy cardigan, the one with the frayed cuffs I always meant to fix, and slipped on my sensible walking shoes. And then I drove straight to Frank's office. Frank and I go back almost 40 years. He was my late husband's friend first, a wiry, fast-talking Tex-Mex with thick glasses and a calculator brain. We used to joke he could find an extra dime in a desert. But more than that, Frank was loyal to a fault. After my husband died, Frank became more than our accountant. He became the one person I knew would always tell me the truth, even when it hurt, especially when it hurt. His office was quiet that morning, the kind of quiet that settles into the corners and waits. He was sipping his cinnamon coffee when I walked in. Didn't even look surprised. Just said, "I knew you'd show up sooner or later." We didn't waste time on small talk. I sat down. He pulled up his files, and we got to work. 5 hours. We spent 5 straight hours going through every line item, every transfer, every withdrawal from the last 5 years. I had a notepad in my lap, filled 2 pages front and back. Tuition, gifts, loans, business investments that never became anything. Joint accounts I didn't even know existed. Property titles with my name removed. Quietly, legally, but removed all the same. When we totaled everything, Frank leaned back in his chair, cracked his knuckles, and said flatly, "You're down almost 3 million, Gloria, not counting inflation or interest lost." I stared at the screen. The number didn't feel real. It felt like reading someone else's tragedy. 3 million. Gone. Gone to brunches, luxury baby showers, Instagram perfect vacations, boutique lawyers for startups that never started. Gone to the same children who now thought I didn't belong in their new, shiny life. I swallowed the lump in my throat. My hands were shaking slightly, so I gripped my pen to keep them steady. They'd only last 2, maybe 3 months without me, Frank said. If that. I nodded. I already knew it. I'd been the one keeping their lights on for years. Not directly, not always, but I was the silent current behind every appliance in their big fancy homes. I looked down at the spreadsheet again. I felt ... anger. Not bitterness, not yet, just clean, sharp anger. I closed my eyes, and suddenly, I was young again. I saw her, me, standing in a dirt parking lot, 27 years old, baby Michael on my hip, screaming in the face of a man who wouldn't sign a contract because I was just a woman. I'd been wearing a cheap blouse and a second-hand pair of slacks, sweat running down my back, and I remembered the way I'd slammed my hand on the hood of that damn pickup truck and yelled, "You don't need balls to run a business, you need spine." That version of me had gone quiet over the years, buried under motherhood, grief, guilt, and bills. But sitting there in Frank's office, I could feel her stirring. She was still in there. Frank looked at me, waiting. He knew I was at a crossroad, knew I had to say something. I reached for my coffee, took a long, slow sip, set it down gently. Then I looked him straight in the eye and said, like I was declaring war, "I'm done being the ATM. I'm done playing the fool. It's time they learned one thing. Whoever makes the money, makes the rules." Frank raised his eyebrows, then, slowly, he nodded. "About damn time," he said. We got to work. Closed the joint accounts, froze the discretionary fund I'd set up for Vanessa, removed the auto transfers from my savings into Michael investment buffer. He walked me through the steps to restructure the property ownership under a trust. With me as the sole decision maker, we called the lawyer and scheduled a formal amendment to the estate plan. No more vague promises. Everything would be spelled out in black and white. By 9 p.m., we were still at it. The office lights buzzed overhead. Secretary had long since gone home, but we stayed. I wasn't tired. Not at all. For the first time in years, I felt awake, alive. Driving home that night, I didn't put on music. I just let the hum of the road keep me company. I thought about Vanessa and Michael. Thought about the way they smiled when I handed them checks, the quick thank you texts, the way they always assumed it would be okay. Maybe they didn't mean to be cruel. Maybe they just forgot that I was more than a mother. That before I was mom, I was Gloria, a businesswoman, a fighter, a whole damn storm when I had to be. When I pulled into my driveway, I left the car running for a moment, looked at my little house, my orchids in the window, still blooming. I stepped out into the quiet. The night smelled like wet grass and something new, like a page turning. And I knew, next time they called me, next time they smiled, that practiced smile and said, just one more thing, Mom, they wouldn't find the same woman they used to. They'd find someone who remembered who she was. Someone who understood the value of $1 and of herself. It was early evening when I made the call. I'd been staring at Andrew's number in my phone for nearly an hour, thumb hovering, heart pounding, slow and steady like an old drum. Andrew was Olivia's older brother, my future daughter-in-law's family. We'd met once, briefly, at a pre-engagement dinner. He was polite, neatly dressed, and had the kind of posture that told you he worked with numbers, banker, or something like that. Quiet, but not dull. I wasn't calling him to start trouble. Not directly, but after everything with Michael, after the bone china coffee, after the spreadsheet, after Frank, I needed to know the truth. Not for revenge, for clarity. I pressed dial. He picked up after 3 rings. Andrew Gonzalez, he answered, crisp and businesslike. Hi Andrew, it's Gloria, Michael's mother. A pause, then a shift in tone. Oh, Mrs. Walker, good evening. What a surprise. I smiled, though he couldn't see it. Don't worry, I'm not calling to pester you. I just had a quick question, and you seemed like the right person to ask. Of course, he said, how can I help? I kept my voice light, casual, like I was asking about the weather. I was just wondering, Michael mentioned that your family contributed to the wedding costs, and I wanted to make sure our numbers matched. Since I'm handling most of the coordination on our end, there was silence. Just a breath too long. Benny said, I'm sorry, what do you mean? I blinked. I mean, he said the costs were being split, that your side of the family chipped in for the venue, or the catering. Andrew gave a small laugh. Ah, no, that's news to me. Michael was very clear from the beginning that his family would cover everything, that it was a gift from your side. I let out a soft chuckle. Oh, I see. I leaned into it now, voice sweet and easy. Well, I guess I shouldn't be surprised. I've been funding things for Michael since he was in diapers. I told him I'd help with the wedding too. I've got a few real estate holdings here and there. It's not a problem. Just wish he'd communicate better sometimes. Another pause, this one deeper. You're paying for the entire wedding? He asked, a different kind of edge in his voice now. Oh, not just me, the whole family, but mostly me, I said lightly. You know how kids are these days. If it's not coming from their own wallet, they get real creative with the truth. He didn't say anything for a while. I could hear the gears turning on his end of the line. Interesting, he finally said. Michael told us his firm was giving him a bonus to cover the cost. That it was important to him to take care of everything himself, to prove he was ready. I smiled again, but this time it wasn't warmth behind my lips. It was steel. Well, I said gently, you know Michael, he always wants to impress. Sometimes that means bending the truth. I've learned not to take it personally. Andrew didn't respond right away, but when he did, his tone had changed, sharper. Thanks for the clarification, Gloria. It's good to know where things actually stand. Olivia and I, well, we'll make sure everything's handled properly. On our side too. I thanked him and ended the call. Then I sat back in my chair, heart thudding in my chest, not with fear, but with something like justice. It wasn't the first time Michael had lied to look better, but this one stung differently. Not just because it was money again, but because it was about pride, about who really built the foundation for this life. He was showing off like he made it with his own 2 hands. And now I knew he was out there pretending that I didn't exist. Or worse, pretending I was just a quiet background figure while he played the lead. Well, the curtain had started to lift, and the audience was going to see the crew behind the scenes. I thought of all the times he'd said, "I'm doing this for us, Mom," or "You'll be proud of me, just wait." But now I wondered if what he really meant was, "I'll make you disappear, so no one sees how I got here." The truth is, I didn't want to ruin his wedding. I didn't want to embarrass him. I didn't even need Andrew to tell Olivia, but I planted a seed, quiet, careful, polite, a whisper of truth wrapped in silk, because a mother who's been underestimated her whole life knows how to play the long game. I stood up and walked to my kitchen, poured myself a glass of water. My orchids were still blooming by the window, white and perfect. I misted them, slow and gentle. Let the petals take the water like medicine, and I thought, let him lie. Let him build his house of cards. I'll be the breeze that doesn't even have to blow hard, because sometimes power isn't loud. Sometimes it's just one well-timed phone call, a knife that slices both ways, clean and quiet. And I wasn't done yet. The morning after I spoke with Andrew, I sat by my kitchen window, hands wrapped around a cup of chamomile tea, watching the wind stir the branches in my small backyard. I didn't feel triumphant, not yet, but I did feel something I hadn't in a long time. Control. And when you've spent most of your life being leaned on, spoken over, and quietly dismissed, that feeling is worth more than any check you could write. It was time for the next step. Vanessa, my firstborn, my daughter, the one with the soft eyes and the expensive taste. Between the 2 kids, she was always the more clever one. Michael had charm, sure, but Vanessa had calculation. She knew how to work people, especially me. But I raised her. I know her tells, and I was about to use that knowledge the way she's used me for years. I called her mid-morning, right between her gym class and her salon appointment. That was her soft spot. When she was tired, makeup half done, walls not fully up yet. She answered on the second ring, already sounding distracted. "Hi, Mom. I was just about to text you back. Everything okay?" I made my voice softer than usual, a little breathy, just enough to press the right button. "I'm okay, honey. I just... I don't know. I've been thinking a lot lately about the future. My future." I could hear her pause. Her footsteps stopped. "What do you mean?" she asked. I let out a sigh, one that carried a little weight, a little tremble. "I guess I've just been feeling old. Alone, sometimes. I don't want to be a burden to you and your brother. I've been thinking about maybe selling a few things. The apartment complex, maybe the cabin upstate, moving into a smaller place, maybe assisted living eventually. Wait, what?" She cut in. "Mom, what are you talking about? Are you sick? Why are you thinking like that?" "I'm not sick," I said, gently, "just tired. I don't want to hang on to all these things only to leave behind a mess for you two to clean up. And let's be honest, I don't exactly have anyone to lean on now, do I?" There it was, that flash of panic in her voice. Not for my well-being. No, not really. It was fear of losing access, fear of the slow, quiet faucet being turned off. "Mom, don't talk like that," she said. "You're not alone, okay? I'm here. You don't have to sell anything." I let that hang in the air, then dropped the bait. "It's just I overheard Michael the other day talking about the wedding. He said I wasn't really a good fit for the crowd, that maybe it was best if I didn't come." Silence. "I know he didn't mean it to be cruel," I said, like I was giving her permission to defend him. "He probably just wants everything to look a certain way, and maybe he thinks you don't quite fit either." That silence turned to ice. "Wait, what the hell is that supposed to mean?" I stayed quiet for a beat, then answered softly. "He said something about the 2 of you always needing help, that you still rely on me too much." I didn't want to believe it, but... double quotes. Vanessa was breathing harder now. I could hear her pacing. "Unbelievable. That little bastard. After everything I've done for him," she snapped. And there it was, the crack. The one I needed. See, Michael and Vanessa were always close, like twin leeches, attached to my account in perfect sync, but they were only united by one thing: access. And when access feels threatened, people don't hold hands, they sharpen knives. "Don't worry," I said quickly. in a fragile voice. I know you've always been more responsible than him. You wouldn't shut me out like that, right? I didn't even need to hear her answer. Her silence was thick with resentment. I let her talk for another 20 minutes. Let her vent. Let her fume about Michael, his arrogance, his lies, how he always expected the world and never said thank you. I offered no real opinions, just little nudges. I'm sure he means well. He's under pressure. He's just trying to impress people. Each one lit her up even more. By the time the call ended, she was promising to come over soon, to help me with some financial planning. I knew what that meant. She wanted to see the books, to see if there was still enough left for her, if Michael was getting more than his share. Let her dig. She'd find what I wanted her to find. After I hung up, I sat back on the couch and looked at the framed photo of all three of us from 10 years ago, me, Michael, and Vanessa in front of Disneyland. I remembered how hard I worked to afford that trip, how I maxed out a card and paid it off slowly for 2 years. They'd smiled, so big in that picture, like I was the sun. Now I was just the power line running underground, unseen, but expected. Well, not anymore. Before bed, I wrote in my journal, something I hadn't done in a long time. I needed to remind myself of the goal. This wasn't about revenge. Not exactly. It was about forcing them to look at me again. Not as a wallet, not as a backup plan, but as a person, a woman with boundaries. A mother who finally learned how to say enough. And if they turned on each other in the process, so be it. It was a Sunday afternoon when Emily showed up at my door. I hadn't expected her. 16 years old, barely taller than my shoulder, in her Converse sneakers and that too big army jacket she wore even in summer. Her hair was tied up in a lazy bun, and her expression, quiet, serious, too serious for a teenager. I opened the door, and she didn't say hi right away. She just looked at me like she was studying a painting. One she hadn't fully understood until now. I brought you a pastry, she said finally, pulling a wax paper bag out of her backpack, from that Cuban place near our house. You like guava, right? I let out a small laugh. Still do, Mia. She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, the way kids do when they feel safe. I closed the door behind her and followed her into the kitchen. We didn't say much at first. I poured us both tea. She put her phone down and didn't touch it once. That told me this wasn't just a casual visit. Something was sitting on her chest. She took a bite of her pastry and chewed slow, then looked at me. Grandma, she said, are you really selling the house? There it was. I nodded slowly. I've been thinking about it. Maybe it's time to downsize. Her face didn't change much, but I saw her eyes scan the walls, photos, old curtains, her baby picture on the fridge, held by a magnet shaped like Oregon. They're freaking out, she said, quietly. Mom, Uncle Michael, even Dad, they've been whispering about it all week. I wasn't supposed to hear, but I did. She pushed her plate aside. They think you've lost your mind. They think you're trying to punish them. I raised an eyebrow. Do you think I'm punishing them? She looked at me for a long second, then shook her head. No, I think you're finally telling the truth. I felt something in me loosen. I leaned back in my chair, folded my hands. You always were too sharp for your own good. She smiled, small and tired. They treat you like a bank. They don't even hide it anymore. Mom's always talking about what you might leave behind. It's gross. I told her once, and she snapped at me. Said I didn't understand family. She paused. But I do. I understand more than they think. I reached across the table and took her hand. Her fingers were cold, but her grip was firm. You remind me of me when I was your age, I said. Too much heart and too good a memory. It's a dangerous combination. She laughed at that, but her eyes were still heavy. They're mad because they're scared, she said. They know the money's running out. They know they don't actually have anything without you. And instead of fixing that, they just keep pretending it's all fine. I looked at her and saw something that broke my heart and mended it at the same time. Emily wasn't like them. She didn't want anything from me. Not shoes, not cash, not shares in a property she didn't earn. She wanted the truth. And maybe that's what I'd been waiting for all along. You ever wonder what kind of woman I was before I was your grandma? I asked her. She smirked. All the time. I nodded toward the living room. Go grab that red box under the coffee table. She did. Set it on the table between us. I opened it, and together we sifted through photos, old letters, receipts from trips I'd taken for work before the kids were born. She pulled out one faded picture. Me, age 27, in a wrinkled blouse and jeans, standing in front of a rusted-out truck, face flushed from yelling. "You look pissed," she said. "I was," I replied. That was the day I told off a contractor who tried to shortchange me just because I was a woman. I threatened to call every inspector in the state unless he paid in full, and he did. She looked at me like I was a stranger and a hero at the same time. "You were a badass." "I still am," I said. That night, we didn't talk much more. She helped me water the orchids, then curled up on the couch and fell asleep watching an old movie. And I sat next to her, watching her chest rise and fall, and I thought, this is what legacy should feel like. Not inheritance, not money, not assets with blood price tags, but something that lives on in the spine of someone strong. The next morning, I woke up before her. I made pancakes, the kind with crispy edges the way she likes. When she sat down, rubbing sleep from her eyes, I poured her orange juice and said, plain and clear, "I want you to be in charge when I'm gone." She looked up, confused. "What do you mean? My estate, my story, my name. I want you to be the one who holds it, not Michael, not your mom. You." She blinked, stunned. "I'm not even 18. I smiled. "That's why we'll start now. You'll learn. I'll teach you. Finance, property, paperwork, everything. You've got the brains, you've got the guts, you just need time." She didn't answer right away, but I saw the way her eyes lit up. Not greedy, not entitled, just proud. "You really think I can do that?" "I don't think," I said. "I know." And in that moment, I saw myself again. Not the old me, not the tired mother or the aging widow. The real me, the girl who never backed down, the woman who built everything from scratch. And now, the elder passing the match to someone who'd carry the flame without burning it all down. In a house full of liars, manipulators, and beggars, I found the one child who didn't sell her soul. I spent the whole day preparing. I didn't cook anything fancy, just pot roast with carrots and potatoes, a salad with too much vinegar the way Michael liked, and Emily's favorite lemon cake from the bakery down the street. The kind of dinner that makes people feel full in their stomachs, even if they leave empty everywhere else. I set the table with my good plates, the white porcelain ones with the blue rim that I only pull out on holidays, not because I wanted it to feel like a celebration, but because I wanted everything to look proper, clean, controlled. If I was going to burn the house of lies they'd built, I wanted it to be in my kitchen, on my terms, with my fork and knife. They all arrived just after 6. Michael was first, with Olivia on his arm, her in a silk blouse that probably cost more than my refrigerator. Then Vanessa, tense and overly made up, dragging Ryan behind her like luggage. Emily came in last, quietly, giving me a look that said, "I'm ready." We ate in near silence at first. Small talk. Olivia commented on the roast. Ryan asked if I'd changed the curtains. Michael cracked a joke about the Wi-Fi being slow. I smiled, nodded, let it all sit like steam over a still pond. Then, I stood. "Thank you all for coming," I said. "I asked you here because there are a few decisions I've made that I want to share with everyone at once." They looked up, forks half raised. Even Olivia put down her wine. I opened the folder I'd placed beside me earlier. Thick, heavy, years worth of bank statements, wire transfers, real estate paperwork. Frank had helped me organize every page like a prosecutor. "I've spent the last few months going through all my finances," I said calmly. "What I gave, what I signed over, what I trusted." I handed Vanessa a summary sheet, one to Michael, one to Ryan. Emily already knew. Vanessa's eyes scanned fast. Michael just stared blankly until he saw the number at the bottom, $2.8 million. "Over 5 years," I said. "That's what I spent on you both. Tuitions, cars, loans, weddings, vacations you couldn't afford, credit card bills I paid without telling you I knew." Ryan's hands trembled. His mouth opened slightly, but he didn't speak. Michael turned red, not embarrassed, angry. "This is dramatic," he muttered. "You said you wanted to support us. You always offered." "And I did," I said, still calm, "but I never offered to be erased." I pulled out my phone, pressed play on a voice recording. "Of course I'm not inviting Mom to the wedding. If she shows up, people'll think she's the maid or something." Michael froze. The words echoed in the room like a slap. Emily didn't blink. She already knew. Vanessa looked away. Ryan coughed. Olivia looked stunned. I recorded that 3 weeks ago, I said. And since then, I've made some changes. I stood straighter. Every word had weight. I'm cutting off all financial support, effective immediately. That includes housing stipends, shared property access, and joint accounts. Titles I once transferred. I'm pulling them back. Legally, permanently. Vanessa gasped. Michael shot up from his chair. Are you serious? He barked. You can't just. This is insane. You can't do this to us. I can, I said, and I am. Jesus, Mom, he shouted. You're ruining my life over a stupid comment. I didn't mean it. He was pacing now, waving his arms, breathing like he'd run a mile. It wasn't just the comment, I said. It's the years of being treated like a backup plan. A silent investor. A name on a deed. Never a mother. Vanessa looked shell-shocked. Ryan was pale, his hands gripping his knees under the table. About the kids, he whispered. You helped with school, daycare. I've done enough, I replied. And you've built nothing of your own. Then I turned to Michael. As for your wedding, you still want to use my money. That's fine. He looked at me like I'd thrown him a rope. But here are my conditions, I continued. 1. I sit at the main table. 2. I am acknowledged, publicly, as the person who funded your future. 3. You look me in the eye, in front of your bride and her family, and thank the woman who raised you after your father died, who worked until her hands bled so you could wear a $1,000 watch. He stared at me, jaw clenched. If you can't do that, I said, then you can pay for your wedding yourself. The room went dead quiet. Vanessa looked between us, then suddenly stood up. This is a mess, she muttered. I told you this would blow up. You and your ego. Michael, you couldn't even pretend to care about Mom for one damn month. Her voice cracked. She didn't look at me. But I knew her alliance was breaking. Her safety net was unraveling. Emily stood too, walked over to me, took my hand. I'll help clean up, she said softly. I nodded. The others filed out slowly, bitter and broken. Michael slammed the door on his way out, and in the quiet that followed, I exhaled. For the first time in years, my house felt like mine again. I didn't expect him to take the deal. Deep down, I knew Michael would never agree to stand in front of Olivia's rich, polished family and admit the truth, that he'd been propped up by his mother's savings, that the image he'd built of himself as a self-made man was paper-thin. Still, I gave him the choice. I gave him one last offer, a moment to do the right thing, to face the truth, to give back just an ounce of dignity to the woman who built his entire life from scratch. He said no, not to my face, of course. He texted, like a coward. Mom, I can't accept your conditions. This wedding is about moving forward, not dragging up the past. I'll figure something else out. I didn't respond, because there was nothing left to say. A week passed. The invitations had already gone out. The deposit for the venue was paid, but not in full, not without my support. I knew how the numbers lined up. Frank and I had seen the accounts. Michael's big job didn't pay nearly as much as he let on. The car lease alone ate up more than a third of his take. And Olivia, well, she came from money, but her family wasn't about to pick up the slack. Not for a man who couldn't stand on his own 2 feet. On the 9th day, it happened. The wedding was called off. No public announcement, just a quiet update on Olivia's Instagram. Her profile picture changed from the engagement shoot to a solo photo of her hiking somewhere cold and empty. The caption said it all. Sometimes walking away is the strongest move you can make. I didn't gloat. I didn't cheer. I sat alone in my living room with a warm blanket across my knees and the last slice of Emily's lemon cake in front of me, untouched. And I let myself grieve. Because as much as Michael had hurt me, as much as he'd lied and used and insulted me, I never wanted to see him fall like that. But the truth is, he built that fall himself. He climbed too high on a ladder I paid for. And when I stopped holding it steady, he toppled. 3 days later, Vanessa called. Not to talk about the wedding. Not at first. She sounded tired, older somehow. Like the weight of the world had shifted onto her back. Mom, can we come over for dinner tonight? I knew who she meant. Ryan didn't say much when they arrived. He nodded at me, kissed my cheek out of habit, and sat at the kitchen table like it was a courtroom. They barely touched their food. Vanessa picked at her salad. Ryan stared into his water glass like it might hold an answer he couldn't find in her eyes. 10 minutes in, the yelling started. It wasn't the usual petty bickering, not the light jabs and passive remarks they usually threw across the dinner table like crumpled napkins. This was war. You think I wanted to depend on her? Ryan snapped. You think I like watching my wife run to her mother every time we run out of rent money? Well, maybe if you'd held down a job for more than 6 months. Don't start with that again. I've held this family together, Ryan. I've kept us from going under. And yes, I've leaned on her, because at least she shows up. I stood by the sink, washing dishes slowly, quietly, listening, letting it all play out. The cracks had been there for years. I just stopped spackling them, and now the house was crumbling. When they finally left, Vanessa kissed my cheek and said, "Thanks, Mom, for dinner." Her voice was hollow. I didn't ask her what she really meant, but I knew. 2 days later, I got a message from Olivia. Not a call, not even a voice note, just a short, private message on Facebook. "Gloria, I just wanted to say thank you. I know things ended badly, but I think I would have lived a very different kind of life if I'd married him. I'm sorry for how things went. Take care of yourself." I read it twice, then deleted it. No need to respond. She was already gone. I started walking again in the mornings, just around the block. The sun warming my shoulders, the birds chattering like they'd never heard of family drama. Sometimes Emily joined me, earbuds in one ear, the other dangling loose so we could talk if we felt like it. I liked those walks. No demands, no lies. Just footsteps on pavement and space to breathe. The strange thing about taking your power back is how quiet it is. No one throws you a party. No one claps. There's no parade. But one morning, I looked in the mirror while brushing my teeth, and I didn't flinch. I saw my own face, not the mother, not the provider, not the background character in someone else's life. Just me, Gloria, a woman who survived, who fought, who finally said, enough. 2 years passed, quietly. No more late-night calls, asking for a wire transfer. No more surprise knocks at my door with problems they'd already decided I should solve. Just me, my small house, my orchids in the window, blooming on schedule like old friends showing up on time. I started reading more history books, mostly real stories of women who didn't wait around to be saved. I even joined a book club at the library, where I was the oldest by at least 15 years, but no one seemed to mind. I cooked simple meals, took long walks, and sometimes, when the wind was just right, I let myself dance a little while cleaning. Nothing big, just a sway of the hips, a memory of youth. Life wasn't glamorous, but it was mine, and for the first time in decades, no one was draining it dry. Then, one Thursday afternoon, the phone rang. The caller ID said Vanessa. I let it ring once, twice. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel nervous. I just felt still. I picked up. "Hi, Mom." Her voice was softer, less polished. There was no background noise, no baby crying, no clinking of wine glasses or TV humming in the back. Just her. "I hope this isn't a bad time," she said. "It's not," I replied. She was quiet for a moment. Then she took a breath and said it all. "I left Ryan," she said. "Well, technically, we divorced 6 months ago. I just didn't want to call until I had something worth saying." I didn't interrupt. We weren't partners. Not really. We were a team built on comfort and excuses. And once the money stopped, well, there wasn't much holding us together anymore. She gave a short laugh. It was the kind of sound you make when the pain is still too fresh to joke about but too old to cry over. I thought I knew who I was, but it turns out I've never done anything alone. Not once. I went from leaning on you to leaning on a man, and when both of you stopped holding me up, I hit the floor. She paused again. Let the words settle. "Michael is working now," she added. "He's an unpaid intern at some financial firm downtown. Lives in a shared apartment with 2 roommates and takes the bus. He doesn't complain though. I think it's the first time I've ever seen him really try." There was something like pride in her voice when she said that. "A tiny sliver, and me," she said. "I'm trying to." I started working at a clinic. Front desk, nothing big, but it's mine. I pay my own rent now. I wash my own dishes. I even fix my own damn coffee machine when it clogs. Then her voice wavered, just a little. "I hated you for a while," she admitted. "When you cut us off, I told myself you were being cruel, or vindictive, or just trying to control us. But now I know." She trailed off. "You did it to save us. Even when we didn't want to be saved." I sat in silence, phone pressed to my ear, heart beating steady. I didn't speak. Not yet. because she wasn't done. I just wanted to say thank you, she said, not for the money, for the lesson, for letting me fall, for not picking me up when I was on the floor. Another pause. Then, I know I don't deserve forgiveness yet, maybe ever. I'm not asking for that, but I want to be better. Mom, I'm trying. I swear. She sniffled, quiet, awkward, raw. And Emily? I finally asked. Her voice brightened a little. She's good, still top of her class. She's volunteering at the community center now. Drives this beat-up old Honda she paid for herself. She's saving for college. Then Vanessa said the thing that caught me in the gut. She's more like you than anyone else in this family. She sees through everything. And me, ... I'm just trying to learn how to be a person again. Not a daughter, not a wife, just someone who stands on her own feet. I didn't say I forgive you. Because forgiveness isn't a switch. It's not something you hand out like a receipt. It's a garden. It takes time, it needs space. But in that moment, I felt something move in me, like a door slowly cracking open in a long-sealed room. Not because I needed her back, but because she was finally walking toward herself. And maybe, just maybe, that meant we could meet somewhere in the middle. After we hung up, I went to the window and watered my orchids. The sky was pink, fading into gold, and I thought, sometimes you love people so much you let them drown, because it's the only way they'll learn to swim. And when they finally surface, gasping, flailing, alive, you don't reach for them right away, you just nod. Let them find the shore, let them earn it. I didn't move out of guilt. I moved out of choice. After everything, after the fights, the broken wedding, the silence, and the slow rebuild, I sold the house in the city and bought a small place in the country. Nothing fancy, just 2 bedrooms, a wide front porch, and a patch of land out back where I could finally grow something with roots that were my own. It sat at the edge of a sleepy little town where people still waved at each other from there. Trucks and the grocery store clerk knew my name after 2 visits. No one here knew me as Michael and Vanessa's mom. No one here expected money, explanations, or apologies. For the first time in decades, I was just Gloria. My days slowed down in the best possible way. I woke up to birds instead of phone notifications. I drank coffee on the porch and watched the fog roll off the trees like old ghosts drifting away. I read books I'd always meant to, biographies, classic novels, even a little poetry. I started drinking red wine in the evenings, a glass and a half, just enough to warm the chest and quiet the noise in my head. I learned to grow tomatoes, and carrots, and basil, that actually stayed alive. And I started living, not surviving, not mothering, just living. Emily started coming out every other weekend. At first, she said it was just to check in, but I knew better. She was curious, hungry, not for money, but for knowledge. I saw it in the way she looked at my files, asked questions about mortgages, deeds, capital gains. She was sharp in that quiet way that sneaks up on you, observant, focused. One morning, we sat at the picnic table behind the house, sunlight pouring over our papers and iced tea sweating on the wood. She held a pen like it was a weapon. I handed her a stack of documents. This, I said, tapping the folder, is the trust account. Yours, private, protected. You won't get a penny from it unless you follow the plan. Not because I don't trust you, but because I do. She nodded, didn't smile, didn't gush, just said, okay, show me how it works. So I did. We spent hours every visit going over things, budgeting, investing, property taxes, risk, insurance. I didn't sugarcoat a thing, because the world doesn't. And neither should I. Vanessa started coming too, slowly, carefully, like someone walking barefoot, across old glass. She'd show up Saturday afternoons with a bottle of wine or a pie. She didn't bake, and she'd sit at the table with Emily and me, listening at first more than talking. But little by little, her voice returned. She told us about her job at the clinic, how she liked being useful, how strange it felt to rely only on herself. She talked about therapy, about rebuilding, not just her life, but her sense of self. We didn't rehash the past, not really, but it was there in every silence between us. In the way she'd squeeze my shoulder when she passed behind my chair, in how she cleaned the dishes without being asked. Forgiveness hadn't been spoken, but it had started to live here. Quiet and steady, like something we were planting together. One Sunday, the 3 of us sat outside under the string lights I'd strung across the patio beams. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, and the crickets had begun their night song. I poured the wine. Emily cut slices of the blackberry cobbler Vanessa had brought. I think, Vanessa said, eyes on her plate, I spent most of my life running from you, not because you were cruel, but because you made me see myself too clearly. And I wasn't ready. She looked up. I am now. I didn't say anything, just reached across the table and took her hand. Emily didn't speak either. She didn't have to. She understood better than either of us. She was the bridge, the next chapter. The proof that some things can skip a generation, not out of neglect, but out of survival. Now, my days feel lighter. I still wake up early. I still water the basil and read my books. I still sit on the porch and let the breeze remind me of everything I've lost and gained. But now, there's laughter in my house again. There's movement, a daughter who brings pie, a granddaughter who talks about mutual funds like their music, and me, an old woman with cracked hands and a heart that finally beats without waiting for the other shoe to drop. I don't regret how I raised them. I regret waiting so long to raise myself, but it's never too late. That's what this house has taught me, what Emily's eyes remind me, what Vanessa's voice, steadier now, echoes back. It's never too late to grow something new. Even after the storm. Now, when I look back at everything I've been through, I can only say one thing. Awakening is never too late. I am a mother, a widow, a woman in her 60s. I once believed that love meant giving unconditionally, sacrificing endlessly. I believed that if I carried the weight of everything, my children would be happy, successful, and grateful. But reality was different. I raised 2 children who grew into adults unable to stand on their own, not because I didn't love them, but because I loved them the wrong way. I filled the gaps with money instead of with guidance and boundaries. I thought I was protecting them, but in truth, I was harming them. And then, when I decided to stop, everything fell apart. But it was in that collapse that the truth finally emerged. I learned that love is not about buying forgiveness. Gratitude cannot be demanded. It only appears when its absence is truly felt. And sometimes, you have to let the ones you love fall, so they can learn how to rise. Michael is just now beginning the independent life he should have had all along. Vanessa told me, I'm learning how to be a person again. Emily has lived like a true human being from the start. And me, I'm learning how to be a mother again, not the kind who shelters, but the kind who dares to live for herself. If you're loving someone so much that you're taking over their responsibilities, stop. Love isn't unlimited financial support. Love is growth, for both people. And sometimes, love is standing quietly while they face the consequences of their own choices. And what about you? If it were you, if your child or someone close to you took advantage of your love and trust, what would you do? Would you have the courage to pull your hand away and let them fall? Would you choose short-term loneliness in exchange for long-term respect? I want to hear your thoughts. Whatever path you choose, I pray you find the peace you truly deserve. May God bless you, always.